I remember going into meetings and the secretary outside would say, "Where is Manisha Girotra?" And I would say, "No, it is Manisha Girotra and it is me." $25 billion weekend when we announced the Vodafone Hutch transaction and the Hindalco Novelis transaction on a Sunday evening. My husband said to me after that, I should just retire, go out on a high. I love the chase, I love the winning. I want to be a better version of myself every day when I go to bed. Mistakes are good, they build your characters. Hi, my name is Manisha Girotra. I'm the CEO of Moelis in India. I'm a proud mom of Tara, an avid golfer. And what absolutely drives me now is that I want to see more and more women in the workforce.
Manisha Girotra, welcome to Kunba. It's a delight having you here today. How do you become a true leader of people?
I think by being open, transparent, authentic. When I started, for example, the average age of people reporting to me was 2x. So they were 50 to 60 years old and I was 24. And I think the only way I could get their buy-in was by saying, look, I don't know it all, but collectively we are going to learn this, get to be winners and go out there and achieve what nobody has. So I think that got me a lot of respect from people, that I was willing to learn from them. I was willing to admit to my mistakes and make amends. So I think learn along the way, but be open and transparent about it.
How do you suggest women in early leadership roles handle the guilt that sometimes comes to meet demands from home, family and work?
So I'm a terrible person to ask that question because I lived with my guilt all the time when my daughter was growing up. But from my own experience, I can tell you that, if you can just get rid of the fact that you want to wear that badge of being the Mrs. Perfect working mom, life would sort itself out. If you just don't want to be that multitasker who wants to control everything, you would be easier on yourself. You would actually outsource to people who probably are more capable and able than you and more relaxed than you. And then you could probably lose the guilt. And I can tell you now that my daughter's 20 years old, she's proud that I'm a working mom. I was a working mom all through her years and actually aspires to be a working woman herself. So in an odd sort of way, life works itself out. But that's my recommendation to everyone, just drop the guilt. All it does, it affects your health and achieves nothing else.
Inspiring bosses that you work for, what did they teach you?
My first boss, J. Trusted me and empowered me beyond my age. I was just 25 years old and he was like, you can do it. And that was amazing. Jeremy Seddon, who basically was just, he was an outsider into India and he respected the fact that he was an outsider, didn't come in a prescriptive way to say, look, this is how the Brits did it and this is how you should do. He was a very good listener.
Manisha, what is the one thing that you picked up or learned from each of these organizations that you worked with? Barclays, UBS and Moelis.
From Barclays, I learned that you should respect the young. They can defy you in some ways, challenge you, but that's good. From UBS, I learned that perfectionism, the Swiss are complete perfectionists, and at that point in time, I think the way the business was, you needed to be perfect at what you did. You needed to reread, and I think I learned that. From Moelis and my boss, Ken, he's just invincible. He's like, let's just go out there and do it. The size never intimidated him that he was going and taking on organizations that were 150 years old and much larger. He was like, we can do it. He has that attitude and I love that.
A misconception about women in leadership roles that you'd like to clarify?
Plenty. Women are high-strung, women are emotional, women like to talk about personal stuff. That's how you can endear yourselves to them. Women don't promote other women. To the contrary, I think women very much promote other women and create a sisterhood around them.
Manisha, you've mentioned before that when you started your career in London, you often carried a toothbrush to work and slept under the desk. What are you telling young professionals today who want to pursue a career in investment banking yet want work-life balance?
So if I tell a 21-year-old this story, they say you were clearly very needy for your job. So as you said, it's not a positive at all. Having said that, this is not an easy job. Investment banking tends to be pretty intense on the hours just because, you're working on very time-specific outcomes. If it's an M&A, you need to complete it in 3 months. So it is a roller coaster. It's not for the weak-hearted. Having said that, and contrary to what it was when I started, where the teams itself are very lean, what we're trying to do is to create proper teams where you can give a work-life balance, you can afford weekends, you can afford work from home, etc. And I think it's the employer's job to create that for today's millennial and Gen Z, because they're not going to work those kind of hours because genuinely they're not needy. They want to be inspired by things other than just the monetary compensation at the end of the month. So that's the job of the employer, to create that kind of environment. And I think to the young, I say, look, it's not going to be very easy. It's not going to be a 10 to 5 job, but it is a roller coaster, but it's something that is so enjoyable, and we'll make sure that it doesn't go from being enjoyable to drudgery. That's our job. But come on in, commit yourself, and you will enjoy the ride.
As somebody who manages a young workforce, what's your advice to other CEOs while managing millennials?
So I think when managing the workforce, 75% of millennials and Gen Z want to know how their jobs are making a positive impact on the society, as you know, right? So it's very important that you tell them or discuss with them what it is that you're trying to achieve as a broader objective. Gone are the days when I was just given a presentation and said, work on this, no questions asked, who's the client, I didn't even know that. None of that. You need to have a full buy-in on why you're doing this. Listen, they may have actually some good ideas. Listen to them, have a discussion, listen to them with an open mind, and then create a deck for the client which has their buy-in and support. So very important to have their buy-in and support. What you shouldn't do is to try and manage them in a very autocratic way. We were managed in an autocratic way, and we were taught to look up to leaders who were autocratic. We were almost like we thought we were joining the army. These guys and girls are not joining the army, so don't try and manage them that way.
How can we address concerns stemming from men saying that they're losing out to opportunities due to a higher focus on diversity? Do you think reverse discrimination is a myth creeping into corporate India?
We're such a far cry away from that, right? You look at the statistics. Every board has just one woman director, which is the mandatory one. Till this mandate came out, there were just 5 or 10 directors all over India. Look at the number of C-suites that are occupied by women, less than 5%. I'm talking about India. Every industry other than IT services and banking has less than 10% women in the workforce. So what are we talking about, guys? Women just aren't represented at every level, other than maybe at the entry level. We're far away from even holding up half the sky. So, challenging the men and making them feel challenged that we're taking up their roles, we're a far cry from that. And I think men need to buy into the fact that diversity is good economics. And when they do that, they wouldn't make comments like that. At the moment, they're feeling challenged and threatened, and that's why comments like this are coming, which is natural when you're challenging patriarchal norms and trying to change things. This kind of adverse reaction will come.
What's the most common piece of career advice that you've heard but completely disagree with?
So it's a piece of career advice I was given, and in fact, and I think this applies more to the women, that put your head down and work, and the rest will follow. And that doesn't. In a world that is so overstimulated, you do need to put yourself out a bit there. You need to network. You need to be heard and seen. And I think if you do that, I'm not taking away from the work. The work's important, but you do need to layer it up with some bit of networking, putting yourself out there, being seen and heard, because that's how you'll get the right outcomes for yourself.
How do you give feedback to your boss without offending them?
Is there a way? I think what I say to my team is that give it in a way that what is the positive impact of making this change, right? Because you're coming from a good place. You're saying if you make these changes, if you challenge the norm, this could actually be a better way of doing things and lead to a better outcome. And I think that way any boss will be open to hear it, because we also want to make a better impact on the client. We live in a competitive world. We want to make a better impact, and we know the young come challenging the norm. So if you give it a positive twist, I think most managers listen in a better way and don't feel defensive.
How do you give feedback to CXOs without offending them?
Similarly, be open and transparent. Have actionable items. I think that's very important. I hate it when people give me feedback, and when I give feedback, if you're just waffling, because you're just unclear, right, what you're wanting. And be honest, that's the most important thing.
Manisha, what's a rookie mistake that new managers or leaders often make?
By showing they're invincible. I think it's very important to today's generation that you're shown, you demonstrate your vulnerabilities. You say you're human. If I wanted to follow a superhero, I would probably go do a mountaineering job or a diving job. I'm not coming into a corporate job. I want to see that people who are vulnerable can make it to the top, people who have made mistakes, people who have shortcomings. So don't try and show you're invincible. I'm not saying go out there and say you're a basket case, but I think do show your vulnerabilities to the team, because they respect that.
Many CEOs look for people in interviews that often develop a connection with them.
Yes.
But how do you square that up with not creating mini-me versions of themselves?
It's the biggest challenge, right? That's how the boys club just isn't breaking, because everyone's just trying to get people who are like them, because they feel those are the guys who will understand the organization better. I think every manager needs to sit back, say, what is it that is good for the organization? Diversity is good for the organization, for example, because it's good economics. And then if you put the organization above yourself, you will have the right outcome. But while I say this, I think it is the biggest challenge today in hiring, because everyone just wants to create mini-me's, because that's how the boys club continues, or or even a lot of women, right, try to hire people who are identical to them, not saying it's just specific to the men. So, but you need to sit back, say, what is the long-term goals and objectives of this organization? How do I make this organization outlive me? Because that's the desire of every good leader. And if you think about that, you'll come out with the right outcomes which are not identical to yourself.
What do you think are 2 qualities that are most underrated or unused by leaders today?
Listen more, talk less. We Indians talk a lot. Take 360-degree feedback seriously.
How do you think the CEO of today should be measured on success versus, let's say, a decade ago?
First, I would say be nimble and agile, extremely important. Have an open office. Gone are the days of the corner room. So have an open office, let people come in. In fact, don't even have an office. Sit out in the open and listen to what people are saying and create an organization that can outlive you.
What's the hardest business challenge you ever confronted? Can you mention some specifics? And do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Okay, so the first one, I think the hardest time for my career was in the beginning when I just wasn't taken seriously. I entered a male-dominated world where women were not meant to understand balance sheets, etc. In fact, I remember going into meetings and the secretary outside would say, "Where is Manisha Girotra?" And I would say, "No, it is Manisha Girotra and it is me." And they would be like, "And what are you going to do inside that room?" Right? So it was very hard. As a youngster, you tend to take these things personally. Today, I can laugh about it and narrate it as an anecdote, but at that time, it really set me back. So I think just the hard task of being taken seriously after having done red eyes, worked hard, and then come out into the meeting and people wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't shake your hand, would just set you back. And the only way to get past that was to keep persevering. Failure, I think one of the failures which I learned a lot from was after doing 20 years in my previous organization, I came to a stage where, along with my sponsor, I felt there was a time that there was no other choice but for me to move on. And because my career and my academic career and my professional career had just been a straight line till then, I think I took it very personally. But from that, I learned a lot. I learned how to reinvent myself. I learned who my real friends were. I learned how to re-energize myself. I bootstrapped another organization. So I think it's great. A lot of times when you have to part ways with an organization or, the business doesn't fail, you don't have to take it personally. A lot of times maybe the business model was wrong or just you and your employer have now moved in different ways. So don't make it seem like it's personal. Second, you realize who your good friends are, because a lot of people just run when they see you fail because they just don't want to be associated with failure. And at that time, you realize the importance of family and friends who will stay with you, stick with you, and be your biggest cheerleaders.
Manisha, from your experience leading countless M&As, what's the most important quality that has helped you get two parties to agree or come on the same page?
I don't think it's my special knack, but I can tell you that two parties will only agree to an outcome when both feel that they are winners. I think if you see that one feels that they've lost out, inevitably that deal will fail. So make both sides feel that it was the right outcome for them. They were winners. Don't take too much off the table if you're representing the buyer. Don't take too much off the table if you're representing the seller. Let everyone go back feeling they're a winner, and then you'll have the best outcome.
3 words that describe Manisha Girotra's leadership style.
Open, transparent, loud.
One trait of a good leader that you wish you had imbibed more of in your leadership.
An ability to say no. I think because we are such people pleasers and we are born to mums who are these perfectionists who are like, you can't say no to anything. I think I struggled with the fact that I learned to say no the hard way and in a long way. In a longer way than I would have liked to.
Manisha's proudest moment in her career, and did success teach you anything?
I think failure taught me more than success, but I think success taught me always that I want to be a better version of myself. We live in a business that's a roller coaster, so you can't rest on the accolades of your past success. You can't say, I did this great Vodafone $20 billion transaction, advising them to buy Hutch India. Great, you've done that. That's in the bag. What's the next one? So it's important that you keep reinventing yourself. You can't ride on your past success, and that's great because it helps you keep becoming a better version of yourself.
The proudest moment of your career?
I think bootstrapping UBS and Moelis in India. And when I say bootstrapping, I don't think I did it alone, but the fact that I could bring two organizations which UBS continues to outlive me and thrive, and the fact that I got Moelis in when people didn't know how to even say the word Moelis, and today we're one of the serious players here, makes me proud.
How does one get better at decision making as a leader, and how have you scaled yourself as a leader?
I think it's a muscle memory, right? You have to practice it. It's like anything else. It's like you go to the gym to build better muscles. You have to practice your leadership skills. Learn a little bit. You will falter a little bit. See how you can improve yourself from those faults and get better at it. Acknowledge the faults at the same time to your team. If you've made mistakes, be open and transparent, and you'll become a better version of yourself as a leader.
Manisha, how does one balance being compassionate with your team yet pushing hard for results?
So look, we're in the business of making money. Let's be clear. The objective is to return money to the shareholders. We're a listed company. People are expecting us to make money. So let's not, and my boss is expecting us to make money in India. Yes, we can mollycoddle each other, love each other, be compassionate, but the end goal is to make money. So long as you get people who buy into that objective, then everything else can fall into place. Then you can have a good culture, a transparent culture in which there's a sense of ownership and empowerment amongst the people that they feel oriented towards the goal, but you cannot take away from the goal. You have to be very clear to everyone, millennials and Gen Z, that we're here to make money, we're here to do good to the clients, we're here to do good for the shareholder, we're here to do good for Moelis and Company. And within that, then you can have a great culture, an open culture, which then makes sure that everyone achieves that objective.
How do you retain talent in a team when they get a better offer?
You just talk about what the longer objective of the individual is. You don't try and preach on why it's great to be in Moelis and how you're going to be an MD in 5 years and be a fast track. I think understand the objectives, why the individual is leaving. And if there is a way you can address them. For example, a couple of my colleagues wanted to leave because they were getting married and going away to the Middle East. So we were like, why? You can just get posted to Dubai or London, right? So we made sure that happened. Sometimes people leave because they just feel, the hours are too long, or, they're not able to say to their manager that, Saturday, Sundays, they don't want to work. So you make sure you make those changes. So if you can make those changes, if you can see why, if you can make the individual see why there can be a bigger buy-in for what they want to achieve, you manage to have success and retain people.
As an investment banking associate, how do I say no to additional work without seeming lazy?
So firstly, I think you should try and do more and more when you're young, not trying to say, guys, come in here and work 90-hour days, but you're getting people to work this overtime or whatever it is, or take on more tasks. And then I think every manager will see the light. Every sensible manager will see the light.
What's the most brutal feedback that Manisha Girotra received on her leadership? Who did it come from and what did they tell you?
So one was the ability that I need to learn to say no more. Second, that I can be quite negative. When I lose a transaction or when a transaction doesn't go through, I tend to get a bit personal and tend to wallow in self-pity. There is no self-pity in this thing, and I think over time I've learned to process it faster. I do feel bad, but the 24-hour rule or the 48-hour rule, I've started imbibing that and getting better at saying, look, come on, let's get on with it. What are the learnings? I pencil that down and move on.
If you could ask someone one question in an interview, and based on that question you would hire them, what would that be?
Do you play a team sport? And if yes, then it's a definite hire.
What's the best mentoring advice you have given someone?
Believe in your inner voice. We're overstimulated with mentors, sponsors, podcasts, etc., etc. But listen to your inner voice. It always guides you right.
Data or instinct? What does Manisha bet on more?
Both. I think data hones your instincts, right? So data is important, but never ever compromise on your instincts.
Manisha, in your formative years, who influenced your early thought process on leadership, and what is that one lesson that has stayed with you throughout?
So my dad used to work in a state-owned bank, and we lived in Himachal, which is all mountainous, and he used to have this rickety jeep, and that's all he had, where he would drive around in that rickety jeep with a one-eyed driver, opening branches in the most reclusive places. And this was when it was snowing, etc., etc. He would just go, and his people would follow him. He would take us along, me and my brother, for some of these rides. My poor mom would be traumatized, but he would take us along. And what I learned was that people would follow him, compromising in a way their lives, right, and livelihoods, because it's unsafe going around in the mountainous areas in the snow, and they would just follow him like Pied Piper. And I learned from him that they did it because he was compassionate, completely open, transparent with them, respected their families, and I learned from him that, look, you're only as good as your people, because he couldn't go and open 100 branches in 9 years in all of Himachal if it was he alone. And that's when I realized that you're only as good as your people.
Couple of mistakes from your own career that you're telling your kids to avoid at all costs.
So my daughter says I'm getting a bit philosophical, so this is going to be a bit of a philosophical answer, but really I don't think they were mistakes. I beat myself very hard on those mistakes, but honestly I learned a lot from those mistakes, and today they're learnings. They may be anecdotes or they may be learnings, but they're not mistakes. And mistakes are good, they build your character, so I'm all for it now. 10 years ago I would have given you a very different answer.
Who in Business India is inspiring you right now and why?
Nandan Nilekani. The way he's able to reinvent himself, he's absolutely effortlessly gone from business to government, given us the best digital public infrastructure, gone back into business, written a book, done a lot of good for the larger society. So he really inspires me. I've always been inspired by the Infosys team right from my younger days when I used to do roadshows for them. So from Murthy for his simplicity, Nandan for just his genius, Mohan for just the way he can relentlessly keep talking to investors. So I've always been inspired by them, but today I'm really inspired by Nandan.
Manisha, what are you teaching your children today about life, leadership and followership?
So I think business is changing very rapidly. So you need to be agile and nimble. You need to be empathetic, like we discussed. You need to be growth-oriented, and more than any time else, the younger generation needs to be innovative. As a leader, as an employee, as an employer, you need to be innovative because things are disrupting so fast, right? It's amazing. It's scary.
If you were in my seat and had an option to put somebody there, who would you interview and what would you want to ask them?
So my current obsession is the NVIDIA founder, 𝐁𝐞𝐢𝐧𝐿. I am just amazed at how he keeps it so real when the whole world is around in a frenzy around him and his company. I saw a picture the other day of him buying onions in a grocery store, and I was like, how does he keep it so real? Because all of us, it can all go to your head very quickly. So I'm very inspired by him.
What's the end goal for Manisha Girotra, and what brings you to work every single day?
So the chase, I love the chase, I love the winning, and I want to be a better version of myself every day when I go to bed.
Manisha, as you become successful, it's easy to get complacent. You've often said this, that you keep your ears to the ground by interacting with people who know more than you. Who are these people and how do you identify them?
The young in the team. That's how I was when I came in. I challenged the norm, right? Over the years, you tend to take the status quo and not really challenge it. The young come in with a fresh pair of eyes, fresh pair of ears, and today, more importantly, they're irreverential, unlike our generation who dare not open their mouth in front of their bosses, right? So listen to them, you'll learn, they'll challenge you, and you will be a much better leader as a result of that.
Manisha, your quick fire with 𝐷𝐿 starts now. The hardest thing about being a CEO is dash.
Being accountable 24/7.
One thing you've learned always to do as a leader.
Be honest.
One thing you've learned never to do as a leader.
Be very honest.
One thing you wish people knew more about Manisha.
Actually, I started off as a very shy person. So, you can make the transition from a shy introvert to an extrovert leader.
A personality trait that often gets in your way.
My inability to say no. I'm getting better at it, but I still would like to work more on it.
One thing about your job that you're really good at.
Empathy, not just with team, but with clients. I can read the room well.
One thing in your job that you could get better at.
Technology.
First thing you do in the morning, the last thing you do at night.
Say a little prayer in the morning, in the night, needily try and chase my daughter who's in the US to get one message from her to say she's okay.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Your favorite workday time waster?
Listening to Bollywood songs.
Your secret daydream?
Hanging out more with my daughter and her friends.
Golf lessons with Tiger Woods or back in the deal room?
At this stage, golf lesson with Tiger Woods.
With two famous bankers at the dinner table, what do Sanjay and Manisha argue most about?
The lighting in the room. He wants it bright, I want it dull after a long day.
One startup founder that's caught your eye or you really admire?
Flipkart.
Your favorite show or book when we say the word leadership?
I'm seeing this show, a Korean show called 𝐷𝐿. I read the book and it's about intergenerational women and how they basically carried the whole family, and it's really inspiring me. Powerful acting.
70-hour work week dash.
Needed.
What was your last impulse buy?
My last impulse buy is always a sari.
One moment from your life that you'd love to relive?
It was a $25 billion weekend when we announced the Vodafone Hutch transaction and the Hindalco Novelis transaction on a Sunday evening. My husband said to me after that I should just retire, go out on a high.
An expensive thing you feel guilty about buying?
Saris.
Your worst childhood fear that you've overcome?
Shyness.
A cause you are most passionate about?
Girl child.
One unicorn that you wish you were running?
I like running Moelis in India, but I would love to run delivery. I'm very inspired by the CEO. He lives in Goa. He's created an organization which has really just thrived on the deficiencies in the system and created a world-class business.
One founder that you'd love to be co-founder with today?
My classmate 𝐷𝐿.
3 upcoming Indian business leaders to watch out for?
I think a lot of the next generation isn't resting on the accolades of their parents. So I'm impressed by what I see of Ananya Birla, Isha and Akash Ambani and Kevalia Vora.
The soundtrack to your life will be?
I Will Survive.
And if you had a gigantic billboard out there and could put out a message to millions, what would it be and why?
I think this generation tends to get too carried away with their own stuff, and I think that's not sustainable. And have fun, enjoy the ride. I think it's very important. We just get bogged down by now and what's happening to us, but I think it's really important to enjoy the ride.
With that, Manisha, thank you very, very much for this chat with 𝐷𝐿.
I met the 𝐷𝐿 founders today and I am genuinely inspired by them because I have always wanted to reinvent myself, and here are these two people who just gave up a fully set corporate world and are going out there and trying to do good for the world. So more credit to them, more cheers to them, and I hope they do very well.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.